what's happening here.
Let's take an attempt at Skype once again. As boy, we certainly have had a lot of
This has been awesome.
Skype here today.
Hockey Heaven, Strathroy Division.
Well, I think this is
I love
Whitey
it.
Stapleton. This is Mike Richards calling from rawmikeRichards.com on a very special day, Pat.
Michael, do you know that many are called to Hockey Heaven, but few are chosen?
That I would believe. And so you, in floating around in your clouds there today, Pat, I got to say that we talk about these magnificent and true big hockey moments historically in Canada with all these different tournaments, whether it be an Olympic one or World Cups. And because being 54 and I've looked at all those championships and big gold medal moments, for me, it will always be 72. I don't think I've ever experienced a cultural I guess it was almost a collision that we saw back in there. I don't know if it'd ever be duplicated, but for that moment in time, I think that's why it changed the way that we played over here forever. That 1972 is the defining tournament for me, Pat.
You're not wrong, because most Canadian fans talk to us, and we've been out pretty active as a group the last 2 or 3 years. And they talk about the tremendous comeback of this team, like the will to win, that Canadian attitude, not giving up, right? And it was a team victory second to none when you figure the odds that were against this team to start with. I mean, the time of the year, 10 NHL teams coming together who really didn't like one another. And then over a period of 27 days, they become the team of the century. And, it's pretty riveting when you talk to Canadians, just like yourself, who remember that time in history. And we're very proud to represent Canada and active and giving back. Our guys have been so honored by Canadians that we formed a corporation in 2014 to give back to Canadians. And again, it isn't out there a lot, but this team has been honored in 72 as the team of the century. In 1997, which was the 25th year, Canada Mint offered a coin for the 25th anniversary, and Canada Post put a stamp out. And then in 99, they were honored as the team of the century. And 2000, the Canadian Mint again produced a statue that they have at the Hockey Hall of Fame there at Front and Yonge Street, honoring the team. And in 2005, Canada Sports Hall of Fame inducted the whole team, the first team ever inducted into the Hall of Fame. 2012, are you getting tired of hearing this stuff?
No, not at all. This
2012,
is fantastic.
they were presented with a star on the Canada Walk of Fame. And 2012 again presented with the Canadian Jubilee Medal, the Queen's Jubilee Medal. Where else are we going here? This is an interesting one, because in 2016, Parks Canada recognized the significance of the series and are putting bronze plaques at each of the 4 locations in Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Vancouver, where the games were played. 2017, I don't know whether people realize, but 13 of our members were elected as the top 100 players of all time in the NHL. And then Canada Post again in 2017 honored the team again with another stamp, commemorating the part of the 150 celebrations, and this is the 45th year of the series. So,
well, Pat, when you talk about all the things that happened during that series, now, again, for myself as a kid watching it on television, most of those moments are ingrained in my mind because I'm watching it on TV. And this, of course, is before, for the most part, there was no sports television, so you're not going home to watch the highlights. You're not going home to see all the recorded. VHSs and VCR machines weren't really all that prevalent at that time. And I remember talking to Pete Mahovlich saying he didn't see that goal that he scored in the Gardens. He only saw it about 20 years later. And he said, geez, that was a pretty good goal. It was one of the greatest goals I've ever seen. And I'm thinking,
it was a great goal. Gee. I mean, it's like a prize fight. Is it the first punch or the last punch? It was a series of two pretty spectacular hockey teams when you looked at them. I mean, they were ready to play. They were as good as we've ever faced as a team. And they come in 5-man units and put us back on our heels for a few games because we weren't prepared to play that kind of a series. I felt in the first game when they dropped the puck, the tension was like the 7th game of a Stanley Cup Finals. We were nowhere mentally there to play in that game or physically there. So did we get better over the 8 games? No question about it. Did they get better? I don't know. I don't know whether they played the same every game. And in the end, that maybe hurt them because they didn't have that spontaneity that Canadian players have. They're individual players committed to a group effort that creates a team. And we had some great individual efforts over the whole series to make it work. And that's why people are riveted to it because of the comeback. Let's take the last game, which was played 45 years ago today. We're down 1-0. We come back, we tie it 2-1. We come back. Parkey scores the first goal. Brad Park, the defense had got 8 games, and then Bill White got the second goal out of the defense to come back to tie it 3-3, and then we fell behind 5-3 at the end of the second, and then the rest is history. Phil picks up another goal. He had scored the first one. Cornway bangs one in, and then Paul bangs one in at the end. So is it a team effort? Certainly.
Yeah, it certainly is, Pat. Hey, it's great talking to you. I want you to fill in the blank for me here. So
sure.
Henderson scores for Canada. You pick up the puck. Where is the puck today?
I hate to tell you this because I don't want somebody to tear my house apart for a puck, right? Okay, so I keep it a secret.
Okay.
Someday we've got to figure out what to do with that puck, and our team has talked a lot about it because Canadians should see the puck. It belongs to the game. It belongs to the teams, and it's funny because we had just come back from Moscow and Sochi to spend the 45th anniversary with the players over there, and they kid about the puck, right?
Right.
They kid about it. So it's got legs, that puck, and we're not sure. It walks around somewhere.
That's awesome.
Everybody that looks at it said, that's not the puck. I said, okay, that's not the puck.
One of the things that still strikes me about the series, and it was more of a statement. It was more of an emotional plea than it was any moment on the ice, and that was Phil's speech. And I'm just curious for you on the team, how long was it afterwards where you actually saw what Phil said after the Vancouver game?
I believe it was 10 years after because they had a get-together at 10 years point, and we saw it at that point, I think. But up until that point, I hadn't.
Wow.
And it was like you guys talk about, there wasn't the sports TV there was today. But, to see the goals, I think, if I remember right, Labatt's put out a video, was the first one that come out, and it could have been 10 or so years after that I saw it. The interesting part, I think, for Canadians, yes, it was a rallying point, but the Russians believed that they got recognition because of the series. They were not recognized by their own people, not respected because they had never played against the NHL players, and they got that. And that's why they celebrate this thing so often. They really do. It's incredible. So.
Well, it's, again, the moments that most of us carry around, but being a member of that team, Pat, it's literally like being one of the chosen ones, one of the chosen sons of this country, because there's a lot of different kinds of defining moments that this country has, but very few are going to really represent what we think we are as Canadians, as your team did. And in the times I've had a chance to talk to Paul about that series, and he's it's a very, for obvious reasons, a very spiritual thing for him. He played in those last 3-4 games like he's probably never played, not before and maybe not even after. But for those magical, 3 weeks, 4 weeks really, of what that meant to Canada, Pat, I think for Canadians, we all just thank you. I mean, we thank you for what that meant to us. We thank you for what it has done. And let's be honest, the influence of what Russia brought to playing hockey in Canada, including training techniques, the style of play, some of the logistics of the X's and O's, and the language we use about playing hockey, it came from that series.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I think everybody feels, the fact that we had the opportunity to play in it and still talk about it is exciting. And part of our legacy is this is going to be taught in the school systems about the adversities that we overcome and what Canadians it means to Canada to never give up. And the project is called From Legends to Legacies, 28,800 seconds, the power of teamwork, with thanks and gratitude for being Canadian. It means a lot to Canadians. It was a rallying point, as you said.
Pat, thank you so much on this very special day. I think I'll probably watch a couple of highlights, listen to Foster, change Yvonne Cornway's name a couple of times. But you know what? It's all part of our history, and we certainly thank you for that. And thank you for joining us here this morning.
Thanks, Pat.
The one thing that I want to share with you, one of the things that we felt made a difference was the 3,000 Canadians when we left the ice after the fifth game, running out of time when it was 5-4. And 3,000 of them sang "Oh Canada," and if you see our guys and they talk about it, they get quite emotional about that moment. So we thank all Canadians, whoever was around, who wasn't around, and for keeping that memory alive, because it's a very important time in Canadian history.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Pat. You take care.
Thanks, guys. Continue to have a perfect day.
Oh, it will be. It will be.
Thank you.
Pat Stapleton, Whitey Stapleton joining us.
What? We just become best friends? Yep.